so do you guys think that we look alike? And they're like, hold on. So then they like started to like really like focus in on us, and they're like, okay, this is a little creepy. And so from then on, her and I were super close. You know, we were always twinning, wearing the same clothes. We would go out to brunch. Like it was always like we were sisters, you know?
Who I need to be. Coming from the heart. Coming from the heart.
Welcome back to MOMnation from the Heart. And now a word from our sponsor. Hey y'all, Katie here, founder of MOMnation and owner and operator of Team EvoAZ at eXp Realty, your go-to gal for anything real estate in the state of Arizona. I am the sponsor of today's show. I will link my page and information in the show notes so you can quickly and easily get in touch with me should you need anything real estate, any advice, or maybe you're looking to get into the business. I sure hope you enjoy today's show. Thanks for listening. Hey MOMnation, we are back with another episode of From the Heart, where we share inspirational stories, useful information, and we discuss a variety of women-related topics. I am Katie, the founder of MOMnation, and I'd love to welcome our beautiful co-host, Cheri Ramo. Hey, Cher.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty awesome. You feeling good?
Feeling so much better today.
Oh, you poor thing. I felt so bad for you earlier this week, both of you. My goodness.
Yeah. The one below me that we are introducing today, she got to come visit and we had a great time, but all of us got sick. So here we are living our life, barely alive, but we made it through.
Boo. That's what you got to take home as your souvenir. A little bit of sickness.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm like never going back.
Yes, you are.
No, I am. I'm definitely coming back.
That's awesome, though. I'm glad that you guys had a great visit. And I was, Cheri was sharing some of the pictures of your visit with me, and I was pretty impressed because little woman does not go to just anybody. So you must be a special friend.
Rory.
Listen, Rory is like my mini me. So, like, you know, it's like evil twin.
So you get her, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's just jump right into it. We've got Julia with us on today, and I have the goosebumps all over my body. Actually, I've been talking about you all day. And each and every time I get the goosebumps all over my body. So I don't want to butcher the story whatsoever. So I'm just going to let you go right into it, girlfriend. Tell us why you're here.
It's funny that you say butcher because I think in almost every like interview that we've done, they've like mixed up some detail, they've switched it around, they miss a part. It's kind of hard to follow, which is why there's been so much interest in the story. I was adopted in March of 1990 at 3 months old from the Dominican Republic. And I live here in Connecticut. There's nothing good out here, but it's fine. And so growing up, I always knew I was adopted. My mom never hid that from me. It was always, you know, you're just adopted from the DR. And I was like, okay, like that's cool. I come from a big Italian extended family, so I never felt out of place or anything like that. But I had zero interest in finding out anything about my biological family. I was good with where I was at. I didn't ask questions. I kind of just left it where it was until this year. Well, last year, technically. And I was adopted actually with a girl named Molly. And we were adopted on the same day, same time, same everything. So we grew up together. We've been friends for literally our whole life, except for 3 months. So we came literally on the same plane back to the United States. Yeah. So then through the years, you know, our adoption agency would hold things. And so I grew up around other adopted kids who are also from the DR. I have a younger sister who's also adopted from the DR, a handful of friends. And so growing up, I always had this, you know, little Dominican community. So again, I wasn't missing anything. And it wasn't until like 6 years ago when Molly was like, oh, I think I want to find out, you know, my biological family. So I'm going to start doing some research, see what's out there. And she really wanted to. That was something that she wanted to do. I supported her with it. I had zero interest, but I supported her with it. And she ended up uncovering a photo of a woman who, off her adoption paperwork, was her mother. And Molly came to me with the photo and said, well, this is who my paperwork says is my mother, but she looks an awful lot like you. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool, I guess. But like, what am I supposed to do with that information? So I kind of just left it at that. And then a couple years ago, no, not more than a couple, 8 years ago, I started working at this bar in New Haven, Connecticut. Okay. If anybody knows New Haven, is a college town. There's bars every street, every corner, anything. And I started working at this bar / nightclub. And one day I like noticed this girl. Okay. This girl walked past me and she has a Dominican flag on her arm. And I'm like, oh, that's like kind of cool. I was like, I'm going to ask her, you know, is she from the Dominican Republic? Because I don't know, it might be a long shot. She could be actually be from there. She could be adopted. I didn't know. And I asked her, I'm like, oh, like, hey, like, are you from the Dominican Republic? And she like runs past me and she's like, yeah, but I'm adopted. I'm like, wait, like, hold on. Me too. Like, me too. And so then we turned to our coworkers and we're like, so do you guys think that we look alike? And they're like, hold on. So then they like started to like really like focus in on us and they're like, okay, this is a little creepy. And so from then on, her and I were super close. You know, we were always twinning, wearing the same clothes. We would go out to brunch. Like it was always like we were sisters, you know? And we actually thought that it could be a possibility that we were related. But what ended up happening is that when we put our paperwork side by side, it didn't match. So we were from 2 different cities. Our parents' names were completely different. And so we were like, well, that was cool while it lasted. So, because to our knowledge, all the paperwork was correct. So, and to, you know, it's like 30 years later, like, as
Right.
far as I'm concerned, you know, that shit is all set.
It's done. Yeah.
It's a done deal. So, you know, later on, she had moved to Virginia. She had gotten married to her husband. And, you know, we stayed in touch, like a little bit of like, happy birthday, congratulations on your wedding, just like stuff like that. And then in 2000, did this just freeze? I hope not. In 2000, okay. In 2019, Cassandra ended up getting a 23andMe DNA test. And she was the type, she was going to find her family to the date she died. Like she was so keen on finding her biological family. And so she got a 23andMe for Christmas. She ended up doing the 23andMe. Now, 23andMe, you can see obviously what you're made up of, because being Dominican, that's an ethnicity, that's not a race. So she was like, okay, cool. Like I can see like what I'm made up of. She didn't realize that you could find DNA relatives. So when she saw the DNA relatives button, she clicked it and she saw like that there was a first cousin up here in Connecticut. So she messaged him and he was like, yeah, like give me a little bit, you know, I can figure out who your family is and da 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 da. Within like 20 minutes, he said, well, this is your dad. I'm sorry to say, but your biological mom has passed away, but these are your other brothers and sisters. So he gave her all the information. And before you know it, she was on a plane to the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was like super crazy for her. And then fast forward to 2020, the end of 2020, Molly had done an ancestry. So Cassandra had done a 23andMe, Molly had done an ancestry. They realized that they had similar contacts on Facebook, both from the Dominican Republic, both cousins, relatives, whatever. So then Molly approached me and she's like, hey, like, I think that I'm related to Cassandra. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, no, seriously. And I was like, okay, like, why don't you reach out to her and see if you guys are related or something? I don't know. So she ended up reaching out to Cassandra And she's like, hey, like, I think we're related. And Cassandra was like, no, I don't think so, because she's rude. But so then they compared their adoption paperwork, and they had the same mothers and the same cities. And so Molly was like, wait, am I your sister? And Cassandra was like, to my knowledge, my dad did not give up another baby, so there's no way you can be my sister. And then after that, they shared that with me, and I was like, okay, this is getting weird even for me. And then I took a look back on my paperwork, and I'm like, let me just like go through it one more time. Let me see if there's any similarities, you know, whatever, maybe something I missed. I don't know. So then I'm flipping through, and on the second page, I noticed like in a couple of the lines that I have the same last name as Cassandra. On every other paper, it has a different last name than Cassandra. So on the second page, it has me listed as a different last name. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, Cassandra, what was your biological last name? And she told me, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is crazy. And she was like, what? And I was like, listen, I was like, the same last name is on my paperwork right now. And she was like, I just can't. I just can't. So then she asked her biological dad if he in fact gave up another baby for adoption. And he was like, yes, I did. And so then, yes. So then she was like, okay, well, older than me, younger than me, girl or boy? And he was like, okay, younger than you, but older than your sister Jolena, which I fit completely smack dab in the middle of them two. And then it was a girl. So here we are. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's no way. Like, this is a 1 in a billion shot. Okay. This is a 1 in a billion.
Several billion, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Seriously.
So then Cassandra's like, that's it. I'm driving a 23andMe kit up to you. And she lives in Virginia. So this is a 9-hour drive for her. And this was on New Year's Eve. She was like, screw New Year's Eve. She was like, this is way more important.
Hell or high water.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then so she drives up to me, and literally the second that she gets in the door, she's like, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, really? Like, you can't even say hi to me? Like, you can't even say how you doing? She's like, no, I don't care about all that. Like, we're doing this right now. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. So with the 23andMe, like, you have to download the app, register your kit, and do all that stuff. And then she literally puts the test tube like in my face, and she's like, spit in this right now. Her exact words was, spit in this right now. And I'm like, are you serious? And she's like, no, I'm serious. And so I was like, all right, like, whatever, let's do this. And she knows me. And like, I'm one of those people that I would have like completely like pushed this off like for so much longer. But I was like, all right, whatever. So I did the
longer than
23
years.
yeah, exactly. Okay. Longer than 9 years. Yes. So then, you know, I spit in this tube, you know, we put it back in the kit to mail it out or whatever. And I was like, oh, like, I'll bring it to the post office. And she was like, you think I'm going to trust you bringing it to the post office?
He was determined.
You know what? The thing is I probably wouldn't have brought it to the post office. I probably wouldn't have. You know, so whatever. So she drops it off at the post office, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, here we go. So every day she would text me or call me and be like, any updates? Because you can follow like your kit on the app. So she's like, any updates? Any updates? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you're so annoying. And so she keeps going and going and going. And then on January 27th, that morning, she called me at 7 a.m. I'm never up at 7 a.m. Okay. I'm never up at 7 a.m. So she calls me and she's like, any results yet? Because it was getting close to the time. And I'm like, no, not yet. But like, can I open my eyes first? Like, I don't know. And so she was like, well, I have to know. And I'm like, there's no results yet. She's like, okay, well, call me if they come in. I'm like, all right. So at 11:23 the same day, my phone goes off. It's like, ding. And I'm like, oh my God. It says your results are ready. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm like, there's no way I'm opening this.
How did you
There's no way.
Where, I mean, at that time.
I think for like me, I was like, this is either going to be a really good day or a really bad one. So I was like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to open this right now. Do I want to open this? And like, I told my mom, I was like, sit with me. I was like, you need to sit with me right now. And I was like, okay, I sat with it for probably like 20 minutes because I wanted to like mentally prepare myself for whatever it was going to be, as best I could anyway. So then after all that, I'm like, all right, click. I'm like, okay, let me hit the relatives button and tell me why she's the first relative up there and it says that she's my sister.
No. Oh
Yes.
my
And
goodness.
I'm like, there's no way. So I close it out and I open it back up. I close
Refresh.
it out. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, no. Or whatever. So then after that, I'm like texting her and I'm calling her. She's at work. Like she works as a surgical tech in a dentist office. I was like, I don't care whose mouth you're in, but you need to call me back. Like, I do not care what you're doing. Like, this is more important. So then after all that, I had called Molly and I'm like, Molly, like the results are in, like, I am Cassandra's sister, but do you want to be on the phone when I tell her? And she was like, yes. So then Molly and I are both on the FaceTime call. I finally get a hold of Cassandra and I'm like, oh, so like, are you ready for the results? And she goes, what are they? And I was like, well, and she was like, don't be annoying. And I was like, okay, well, so I am in fact your biological sister. And then like just her tears like just started like falling down her face and like Molly was crying. I'm not really a crier, but like they were just like in tears. I mean, it was one of those moments that like you will never ever forget, ever.
I mean, were there even words? I don't know if
No.
I can even fathom being in that position.
No, she basically was like, you're not like playing around with me right now, right? And I was like, no. I was like, I wouldn't play around with something like this. And she was like, I just can't believe this, like after all this time, like it was just one of those moments where no one was saying anything. There was just like crying and like smiles and then like, and are you serious? Like it was an unforgettable moment for all of us. And so the cool thing about all of this is, and what a lot of the media hasn't really covered, except for I think the Today Show, has been that Molly did a 23andMe as well at the same time. So Molly is actually our cousin.
Wow.
Yep. And Molly actually figured out that she is a twin.
Oh my goodness.
Her twin lives here in Connecticut as well. So we all grew up here in Connecticut and we never knew.
Holy shit.
Mind blown.
Pardon my French. Has Molly found her twin yet?
Yes, they have connected her. I have met her twin. They look exactly alike. Molly recently had a baby this year, so now she got a sister, you know, and a baby. Cassandra just had her baby, so I became an aunt. You know, this year has literally been filled with nothing but amazing news, for real. Minus COVID. This is one of those stories that people are like, oh my God, you know?
I have no words. Like I was trying to form them and I have no words. So how is your relationship with Cassandra? Are you guys sisters? You know?
You know, it's funny because we get that. That's like one of the number one questions we get all the time. So has your relationship changed?
Yeah.
The only thing that has changed is that I can call her my sister now. She's my older sister. She won't let me live that down, but it's fine. And the fact that we talk like almost every day now. So instead of like being so distant and just being like friends, now like, you know, we connect on a deeper level now. You know, she had her baby shower. I went down there for her baby shower, and stuff like that. So we're way more connected now, but our relationship hasn't changed. Like we're still how we were 9 years ago. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But like we click so well. So now like kind of made sense like over all these years, like why we did get along so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, understandably so. So both of you and then Molly and her twin all ended up in the same general area.
Yeah, so back in the late 80s and the early 90s, the adoptions from the Dominican Republic to Connecticut were very busy. And there were multiple agencies. So Cassandra was from a different agency. It wasn't even the same agency, which is even crazier because you would think like agency, whatever. So that's why I had such a core group of Dominican kids that were adopted, is because at the time they were just coming in from the DR like it was nothing, so there's a whole group of us, but now it makes everybody wonder like, oh, is my paperwork correct? Because Lucy is out here and she has a sister who's also adopted from the DR, but on her sister's paperwork it says that she's supposed to be Lucy's twin. Come DNA, that's not the case. And her sister, and her sister's actually my first cousin. Molly and Lucy are like my third cousins. So it's like there's this like big like mess up of paperwork. I don't know what was going on with the lawyer in the DR and stuff like that, but it's actually like turned a lot of people's lives kind of like upside down.
Yeah.
As much as it's a feel good story, people have to remember that like our lives have drastically changed now.
Yeah.
Especially for Lucy and Molly, because that's twins. Like you separated twins.
Sad.
So yeah, it's sad. And so for Molly's mom was like, well, if I had known that there were twins, like I would have taken both twins, and then Lucy's sister feels some type of way because obviously they're not twins. So it's like it becomes a very emotional subject to talk about for all of them.
Yeah.
And I recently just became comfortable talking about my story and my experiences, because when my sister Cassandra originally put this on TikTok, everybody was asking, why isn't Julia saying anything? Like, where is she? Da, 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 da. And, Cassandra had to post a video and say, like, listen, like when Julia's ready to talk about it, she'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I never wanted this. And so now I like had to adapt and be okay with wanting this. So it's been a hard transition for me to now talk about adoption, because it wasn't something that I talked about or that I liked talking about at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, it has its ups and downs. It's a great story, but it's also, people got to remember that it's also very hard for us all to kind of digest, what's happened.
I'm sure. And there's a lot of people that are affected here. So not only you girls, but your biological families and your adoptive families too. So
yeah,
there's a lot of change probably and an emotional effect here. So do you mind sharing a bit about that, about
Sure.
your adoptive family and kind of how maybe things have changed?
So for my adoptive family, my mom has been super supportive. She's like, you can tell me what you want to tell me. You can share with me what you want to share with me. She's not pushing me to say anything, she's not like asking a million questions. She's letting me come to her with this. And we've had a lot of conversations, about, the relationship that I think that I want to have with my biological family, which I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet. And just, because the way I see it is my adoptive family, that's my family. That's my family. So it's also protecting them. And I have to make sure that I have boundaries set in place, because I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want to disrespect anybody, nothing like that. But my family is super supportive, even from my extended family, super supportive. Everyone, when it came out in the media, everyone was like, oh my God, like we didn't know. And I was like, yeah, because I didn't put it out there. It's out there by itself, but whatever. And it's okay. And they're all like super psyched about it. And it's nice to have the support, because I wasn't sure how anybody was going to react.
Yeah.
Because it's like a bomb. Like I literally just dropped like an atomic bomb on everybody, but my mom is probably one of the greatest human beings you will ever meet. She gave me a great life. I grew up in private schools. Like I got a great education. I got my master's degree. Like I've had a great life. So in terms of, the relationships changing, they haven't changed with my family. I have yet to see how it's going to be with my biological family. I know they're excited. I know it's going to be very overwhelming, but we're going to see what that's going to look like come March.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know a lot about them? The bio family?
So I do actually, because Cassandra has already done this. She's like been in the process of this for like 2 years now. So she's like, okay, well, this is your aunt, this is your uncle, these are your nieces and your nephews, these are your brothers and your sisters. Like she gave me the whole rundown, like even before we knew that I was even her sister. So, she's kind of like taking me like under her wing, and she's like, okay, well, like let me know if like it gets too much. I talk to my dad every single day. Every single day I talk to him. He always sends me a good morning text saying, buenos dias, mi hija, like, ¿cómo está? Like every morning, he never fails. So, I get to talk to him. I'm mainly keeping the relationship with me and my dad right now, because growing up, I didn't have a father. So to me, that's an important relationship for me to have, because I was always sports. I was always like, oh, my friends have dads. I don't have a dad. Like I always wanted that. And that was always something that I was missing. That was the one part that I was really, really missing. And I get like choked up talking about that because, you see your friends, with their dads, like at practice, at games, and da da da. My mom was never there for any of that. So I didn't have that. And I always wanted that. So now that I get to talk to my dad and stuff like that, it's just that part to me is so special. It's so, so special. And I look exactly like him.
Do you? I mean, I was going to ask that too. And it must be, you must feel that deeper connection, even when you first met him. So yeah. I'm sorry. I should have brought a tissue. I totally screwed that up. Like I'm all freaking messed up over here. You haven't met him in person though yet?
No. So it's only been over the WhatsApp, like over FaceTime. But we have a trip planned in March. So that'll be the first time that I am meeting him.
Wow. So there's got to be a lot of emotion surrounding that too. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of gratitude and a bunch of confusion maybe, and like, bring me through that.
So I haven't exactly had the time to sit with all this, because, the results came in. Cassandra put it on TikTok, it went viral, and then, all the media kind of started with it. So
gotcha.
I kind of had to become comfortable with the story because I was on national television. I had to be okay with talking about it, even though I really wasn't okay with talking about it. Being adopted comes with a lot of baggage. And it's hard to talk about because we struggle with identity as it is. I never knew, I knew I came from the Dominican Republic, but that was about it. Not every Dominican looks the same. My brothers and sisters, we look the same, but we don't, you know what I mean? And so it's come with a lot of emotional things that I have yet to process, which later on I will end up, processing and stuff like that. As of for right now, I've kind of put the way that I feel on the back burner. Just because it's been filled with the media. I haven't gotten the time, to do this. When Cassandra originally did this and found, our biological family, she didn't get off the couch for 3 days. Yeah. It was that overwhelming for her. And it is overwhelming for me. I know it may seem like I carry it very, very well. But it's a lot. It's a lot. The media gets very overwhelming. The appearances get very overwhelming. But the way that I also see it is that there's so many other adopted kids, adults, even parents that have placed, kids up for adoption. There's this whole, universe of adoptees and stuff like that. So if this story can, give people some hope, or if they want to buy the 23andMe, or if they want somebody to talk to, my DMs have flooded with people being like, your story has, allowed me to open up about my adoption. There's people from my high school who are I don't know if you know this, but I was adopted too. And I didn't even know that in high school, so that's what it really is for me, is to kind of connect with others who go through the same things that I go through, whether it be foster care, whether it be orphanages, whether it be adoption, whether it be whatever it may be, it allows me to connect with a whole different universe. And that's what I really appreciate.
That's something that I love about you and like using your platform like TikTok and things like that. Even though you're just now coming out and talking about it, you've already started helping people. You've already started connecting with those that have been adopted, have similar issues or, you know, background stories, or just don't know much about their lives. So I really like the part that you talked about the paperwork, right? So you said that sometimes as an adopted kid, you struggle with identity. So do you think knowing what that piece of paper said for however many years and then finding out that it was wrong drastically changed things even more?
Oh, absolutely. You know, because it's kind of funny because my mom gave me the middle name Maria, right? Because on my paperwork, it said that my mother's name was Maria. So now I have a middle name based off of some woman that I don't even know. Or it couldn't even be related to me in any way, shape, or form. I don't really know, but that's my middle name and we're going to go with it. So it's kind of ironic though. So my name's Julia, right? My mom named me Julia. And my biological mother's name is Juliana. So like, I don't know, like if the universe did some like weird things, I don't know, but like, that's kind of weird to me. But in terms of my paperwork, I mean, I might as well throw it in the trash
Really?
because
So
it's
nothing is right.
nothing, not the city I'm from, not my mother's name, not my last name. Nothing is correct on my paperwork.
Well, and so do you think that your story is helping bring awareness for organizations or whatever the regulations are behind adoption so that way we can clear this up? Because obviously this creates issues and, you know, chain of events that affects an entire family.
Yeah, you're not lying. So the thing is like, adoptions to and from the Dominican Republic, like after I think like 1993 or 4 were closed because there was just too many babies coming from the DR. Like it was getting real messy. And so they shut it down. I don't know if they've opened it back up again. But the agencies that me and Molly were from and Cassandra have now closed. So we're not even going to get the answers, you know, that way. We do know that the lawyer that was on all of our paperwork like got arrested for fraud and like all this other stuff. So she was messy. So I'm not sure, you know, in terms of paperwork and whatever, as far as I'm concerned, that shit is trash. Excuse my French, but that ain't got nothing to do with me. That's somebody else's paperwork. Whose, I don't know, but it's got to be somebody's.
It's crazy. And was there any information about you on it, like your blood type or your eye color, like anything like that?
Nope.
No kidding.
Just how much I weighed. That was about it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So Molly, Lucy, and Cassandra, are they finding the same issues with their paperwork or what?
So Cassandra, no, her paperwork was accurate. Molly, obviously, because that should have been mine. And we're thinking about it, right? We're like, oh, like we were adopted on the same day. Like somebody like really messed that up. And then Molly, actually, her birthday is not her birthday. So now that's created a whole problem for Molly. It says that her paperwork, like her birthday should have been in January. She's actually born in February.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That screws up everything.
Yeah. So does she
Everything.
change that here in the States now with everything and update it?
So, I mean, she could if she wanted to. I'm sure for Molly, she's kind of just like, I mean, it is what it is. It's been almost 32 years. So do we really want to, you know, do all that now, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Julia, I want you to share with us what you're starting to do now with your business that's going to roll out soon and how that came about.
Okay. So when all of this started, and people started reaching out to me and I was like, oh my God, like, this is really cool. Like, this is kind of turning into a movement, if you will. And, you know, I wanted to create kind of a platform for, you know, adoptees, parents who have placed kids up for adoption, foster care, stuff like that. A platform for where they can not only tell their story, but also have an article of clothing, multiple articles of clothing that represent ourselves. And so I created this clothing line that is very, very simple. The logo is very, very simple, but what's behind it is more important. And so with every order, if you're going to get a card X with it, and if you're an adoptee, you know, a mother of an adopted child that you placed up, you know, whatever it may be, I want to hear your story. And so you'll send the card X back to me, and then on our website, we will post it anonymously and kind of create this, you know, adoption movement where everybody can connect. Because I think, you know, a lot of people are so scared to say like, oh, I'm adopted too, or here's my story, you know, because I was like that, you know, and now that I've told mine, I have all these people coming to me being like, I've never talked about it either. And you make me want to talk about it. You make me want to take the 23andMe. So this is kind of a platform for, you know, this whole community to kind of connect on a deeper level, because I think adoptees and adopted kids and mothers who have placed kids up for adoption or have adopted, you know, themselves, they kind of forget that there's other people out there that are adopted. You know, if you don't have a friend, you know, who's adopted, or you don't know anybody that's adopted, as an adopted kid, that's going to make you feel real alone. So the idea behind this is to kind of create this whole platform, and, you know, people can, you know, do it anonymously. They can put their name on it. You know, they can email me, they can talk to me, they can talk to my sister, they can talk to Molly, they can talk to Lucy. I mean, we have, you know, a wide range of people that I know that are willing to, you know, tell their story, put their story out there, and really like kind of come together and create this adoption movement, if you will.
I love that. And Katie knows too. So we posted in all of our state groups. We've had hundreds and hundreds of moms already, just in what, 2 days, a day and a half? Because we were just putting out, hey, stay tuned for our show today. And all of these moms flooded with, hey, we've adopted 5 kids, we've adopted 3 kids, whatever. Hey, I'm a birth mom. I was adopted. My dad was adopted. My grandfather was adopted. All of these crazy, amazing stories. So I can definitely see where that movement comes in, because now all of these moms are connecting too. But they were super excited to hear about your story. I think it's going to be a great, great video for them to listen to. And then also this movement clothing line that you have is going to be great for them as well.
I mean, I'm excited for it, you know, and I think, you know, as an adoptee myself, I think, you know, in terms of, you know, from the parents' side, they struggle to understand what we go through. You know, there's things like our birthdays are hard for us. Holidays are hard for us. Something as small as like, you know, going to a family function is hard for us. So, you know, any, you know, moms, dads who are struggling with kind of figuring out, you know, why their kids are acting certain ways. There's a book called 20 Things Adopted Kids Wish Their Adopted Parents Knew, and it's a great read. And it explains a lot about what we go through as adoptees. And my mom's read it, my family's read it, and it's given them a lot more clarity as to how to kind of go about things like that. So that's also another thing if people are struggling with it.
I think it is so incredibly honorable of you to share your story and to make these moves to help this group of people feel more bonded and feel like they belong. And I can't imagine going through holidays, going through birthdays. Shit, I can't imagine having my paperwork being totally wrong and everything that I've ever believed my whole life was not true.
It's not true. Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm floored right now. And I want to ask you, and I understand if this is not a question you want to answer, but were you not feeling interested in going down that road before Cassandra and before, you know, all of this stuff happened because you felt satisfied, or was there just a lot of pain there that you didn't want to visit?
Both. This was something that like, you can't have expectations when it comes to stuff like this. So like, you know, what if I did try and do this like down the road and it didn't come back, you know, with an ending like this? People got to understand, this is not the ending that you get. You know, this is not your typical ending. This shit is like so far like Lifetime movie, Netflix, Hulu type shit. But for me, I always struggled with my identity and where I came from. And I didn't voice it though. I acted out negatively because I didn't want to deal with whatever was happening emotionally for me from being adopted. And I was and still am very satisfied with the family that I have, but you're always going to miss something. Like you're always missing something. And I don't know if that's even going to be filled when I meet them. But like I said, the dad thing for me is going to fill a huge void. And I think for so long, I was like, well, I don't have a dad. So like, I'm the only kid out here. Like that sucks for me. My mom, the field that she works in, she could never, be at games. She could never. So I was like that kid that like would have to go home with like all the girls like and their dads, and I would kind of just sit there and then I would go home at night and I'd be like, damn, like I'm the only kid that didn't have a parent there. Like that sucks, and for so long, I was just like, I would always ask for Christmas. I'm like, oh, damn, not me about to cry. For Christmas, I would always say like, I want a dad. Like, I just want a dad. That's all I want. And I would tell my mom that all the time. And now to have that, it's filled like a huge void. But these are the struggles that we go through, because nowadays, you have same-sex couples adopting, and that's even hard in itself. So it's one of these things that you got to understand that your kid is going to go through it, because I went through it, but I didn't have the support. My mom tried her best, but I didn't want it. Like, she's not going to understand because she's not adopted. If you're not adopted, you're not going to get it. You're just not. As much as you try and understand it, you're not going to get it.
Right. It's not that you're not a nice, caring person. You just haven't had the experience.
Right. And until you're an adoptee, you're not going to understand it. So, I think for me, I put it off for so long because I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to, uncover something that maybe could have came back with nothing, because I already struggled with, oh, well, where did I come from? Why don't I have a dad? Why don't I have this? Like all these kids at school have this, that, and the third. Why don't I have that? And it had nothing to do with my family. That had all to do with what I was feeling internally about being adopted. I had these trust issues. I wouldn't get close to people because I was afraid that they were going to leave, and so I didn't want to open a can of worms that I wasn't ready for. And this kind of fell into my lap. And even though I wasn't ready for it, it's almost been like such a blessing for me, because it's finally allowed me to kind of, face the things that I haven't in, almost 32 years. So it's almost given me like a sense of relief being able to connect with, everybody else. So that's why like I've really like changed my life around, and now I've become this person who like wants to connect with people. I love talking to people now. Like I like meeting new people. I'm nice to everybody. Like I've completely changed my whole mindset ever since the story has come out. And sometimes you just got to tell it in order to get the relief that you need. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, because it's not, like it's not easy telling the story over and over and over again, because now we're reliving it. But I think it's just important that, you have to understand that like we're out here, it's a community out here. And if this story changes one person's life, then I'm good with that.
Yeah. Then, I mean, that's the thing, right? If you've been able to inspire one person, if you've been able to bring some sort of closure, some sort of, help them feel less confused, then you've arrived, right? You've done your job.
Absolutely.
So you talk about a little bit about trust issues. Tell me about that. I'm sure I know, a little bit about where that probably came from and how that felt. But again, not being adopted myself, I don't fully understand. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So as adoptees, we kind of keep ourselves at a distance, right? We don't allow ourselves to get too close because we already have the abandonment issue because we were placed for adoption. And let me just reiterate, like I say placed up for adoption, not given up for adoption. Because that kind of says like, okay, well, like they really didn't want you. When you, in reality, like you don't know the story, as to why you were placed for adoption. So That's like a big thing. Language is kind of like a big thing when it comes to adoption. So for me, I always like was so standoffish with everybody. People would be like, oh, like, where are you from? And I'd be like, Connecticut. I wouldn't go into detail. I wouldn't, give people details about my life. I wouldn't bring people home. Like I said, my family's kind of non-traditional. So I would not bring people home. Like I was bullied in school. So I kind of went through it. And so I ended up putting like a bunch of walls up when it came to me and my personal life and this, that, and the third. So it kind of just got to the point where it was like, all right, well, I'm just not going to trust anybody and I'm just going to like kind of do my own thing. But that was probably the worst thing I could have done. Because there was a lot of people who tried to be there for me and I shut them off because I was like, you'll never understand, and they won't. And I've accepted that. But like, I can't shut people out every single time they want to get to know me or they want to, talk about, adoption or, talk about the story now, whatever it may be. So, it's just one of those things. It's hard to trust people. So that's just what it is. It's hard. Even relationships for me, like I have a very hard time, opening up to people because of what I've gone through. I mean, who wants to, go ahead and be like, oh yeah, well, this, and this.
Right.
Like here's all my baggage.
Right. You can't start a relationship like that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've also like learned now though, like I don't have to be like that. I don't have to be like, oh, I don't have to consider it baggage. I can consider it, this is just what's happened to me. And I don't mind sharing it anymore. And I'm starting to trust people more. Like, Cheri will tell you, like, I've opened up to her a lot about, how I feel, regarding this and, talking about it, how overwhelmed I get sometimes. But I try to remember in the back of my head, I'm helping so many people right now.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. So now I'm like providing that for other people. So it's like, it's more than just about me anymore. It's like about everybody now.
Totally. And I'm trying to think of it again, not having the experience, but doing my best. I'm trying to think of it from your dad's perspective too. He found his 2 babies. Like, does he talk about like,
So
I know,
for him,
I'm sorry, but I'm like,
no. So for him, it's actually like a really good question. And the only person like who's actually asked this besides you has been People Magazine. So our dad is over the moon. He would always say to us, like, I've prayed for this day like my whole life. Like I never knew if I was going to see you girls again. And like, mind you, like there's 7 other siblings in the DR. Like me and Cassandra were the only ones that were adopted. So, he prayed and prayed and prayed every single day that he would be connected with his daughters again. And, with talking with him, our mother died in 2015. And so we won't get to meet her. So that's, a lot in itself anyway. But he was saying like, your mother walked around with a heavy heart. She died of a heart attack. They think that she was like bearing this weight of giving 2 children up for adoption so heavily on herself that it killed her. And that's what breaks his heart. The first time he saw me, he goes, oh my God, you look like your mother. So it's been very special moments with him. I mean, he did not believe that this would ever happen. So for him, this has been the biggest blessing he could have ever gotten.
I'm sure it must be incredible. I mean, just like like pinch me, am I dreaming kind of thing,
Yeah.
Because
it still doesn't seem real.
I'm sure. I mean, how many miles away is it?
Who knows? The Caribbean's like all the way over there.
Yeah, it's like a zillion miles away. And with paperwork being inaccurate, I mean, everything
and it's a third
up.
world country. It's a third world country too. Women were paid to, put their names on paperwork,
Wow.
So it, there was like slim to no chance that this would ever happen. Like 23andMe, like they are changing lives. Like hands down. We were the story of the year for 23andMe. They still talk about it. They'll email us and be like, we're talking about your story in the office. Like that's just what it's been, because it was unbelievable how like 5 of our lives just got changed because of 23andMe. It would have never happened otherwise.
Families, all of your bio families, all of your extended family, literally
Yeah.
hundreds of people are affected by this.
Yeah. Yep.
So I have a question. Do you find that now that the story's all over the media, everybody's just thinking, oh, wow, this is a great story, but are they unwilling to or unable to understand that, it's not all rainbows and sunshine?
I think especially like in the time that we are now, with the pandemic and stuff like that, when it came out, everyone was like, oh my God, this is the type of story that we needed. This is such a feel good story. But I think as time went on, Cassandra's a little rough when she tries to like talk to people about the story. I'm like a little more like laid back. But when we tell the story to people, they're like, well, how could they split you guys up? First of all, we're not twins. We're sisters. We're 17 months apart. Okay. Like I wasn't even a thought when she was adopted. So people they're not paying attention. They're not listening.
Right.
And if you pay attention, you can understand what has happened here. And so we have done our best to try and explain it. There's only so much that we can fit into, these segments on TV. There's only so much we can fit into a magazine. I mean, People Magazine gave us a 4-page spread and it still doesn't say everything that, that happened, and we do our best, but every single time, the reporters are like, wait, what? Wait, what? It's always like a wait, what? Like they can't believe that it's all unfolded like it has. So, we got asked if we wanted to do an appearance, and we're going to more touch on what's happened here as a whole, not the story, but as adoption as a whole and what's gone on with people's paperwork and kind of the corruptness that's been going on. Yeah.
Well, that's my thing that I'm still stuck on is how many, you can't be the only one.
No way. There's no way.
Like,
There's no way that we're the only ones.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be tons of people out there that are probably like, shit, I got to question my everything.
Yep.
Now.
Yep.
And so how do they, if it hasn't unfolded like it did with you, where you had Cassandra and she had correct paperwork, how could they find that out?
They would have never found it out. And I think probably back in the day, they never thought that it would come this far where there would be DNA test kits, and stuff like that. Because if you go and pay for DNA testing, you're paying an arm and a leg,
Well, also, like you said, it's a third world country. So they don't necessarily think of all the technologies we have here. And this was 30 years ago. Could they even fathom where we would be at today? Probably
Exactly.
not.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm flooded with so much. I'm flooded with so much happiness for you for finding your sister and finding your dad. I'm flooded with so much confusion for you and your families and everybody involved. I'm flooded with hope with what you're doing and what you're pulling together and this movement that you're heading up. I mean, I'm flooded with all these things. And if I'm this flooded, shit, girl, you must be flooded.
Beyond.
Yeah. Well, for you to spend your time with us today, I am forever grateful. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you. Of course. Thank you so much for the inspiration. Thank you for what you're doing out there for other adoptees and for, the group as a whole. I just think it's not only fascinating, but so inspirational and obviously so needed. When Cheri approached me with this, right? And she was like, I know that you've been doing a lot of these. I know that this might be a stretch or whatever. And I was like, what do you want? And she was like, will you, yeah. I was like, what do you want? And she was like, well, how I do that mom's group or whatever, would you mind? And I was like, done. Oh, well, thank you. She's the best, isn't she? I mean, I know she's right here, but let's just love on her for a second. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. That woman, right? Hands down. Oh yeah, hands down. We're very blessed to have her in our life. That's for sure. Absolutely. Yes. Not me saying that. You just recorded that, but there's no beeps, no bleeps in this show. Okay. Perfect. No. Yeah. I speak French too. All right. Perfect. So if our audience wants to connect, we know that we have a lot of, birth moms and a lot of adoptees and all that in our group. If they want to connect with the movement, with what you've got going on, what's the best place for them to do that? They can email me
I think, Cheri, you have my email?
Yes, we can put it in there.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and put it in there. And then if people, actually want to have a conversation with me, I have no problem giving out my number for that.
You are 100% amazing. Thank you so much, Julia.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. And
We're
I'll be
honored.
totally honored. I'll be following you every step of the way. I'm excited for March just to follow more and to see what unfolds. And I mean, are you going to be televising
her
any
on
of that,
TikTok.
or is it on TikTok?
Huh?
Well, I said follow her on TikTok. I've provided your link on TikTok to all of the moms groups. Follow her. And then, of course, the story will be updating as they go. So
Awesome.
That's right. Yeah, it will be televised. We do have TV coming with us. We do have a magazine coming with us. We do have reporters coming with us. So privacy is really not a thing right now, but it's totally fine.
Well, big
Big
love to
star.
you, my friend. My
Thank
heart
you
goes
very
out to
much.
you. We'll be thinking about you. And for all of you out there, if you are interested in being a guest on the show, please follow us at MOMnation USA. That is our handle. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, of course. Cheri heads that up. That is her doing, not mine. But I follow Julia on TikTok, so we're good there.
Yes.
And while you are at it, when you are listening to this show on your favorite podcast platform, please subscribe, download our episodes, and rate us so that we can get more of this news out to the mamas that want to hear it. All right, sisters, it's been real. Big love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.